It's time for Come and Talk It with your host, Michael Cargill, brought to you by Texas Law Shield. Over the last decade, Michael has championed and supported the rights of law-abiding Texans to own and use firearms. He is the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, a veteran of the United States Army, and has achieved national exposure in such prestigious media outlets such as Forbes Magazine, Fox Business News, CNN Money, AOL, BBC World News, Huffington Post, and the New York Times. Cargill vigorously defends lawful gun ownership in this country without regard to party politics. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
Так, стой. Маска где? Маску одень. Стой. Маска где? Маска где, говорю? Маску одень. Да. Маску одень, сказал. Молодцы. Так, стой. Маска где? Маска где? Маску одень. Маску одень. Без маски что не
Good
ходил,
day,
понял?
Austin, Texas, live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. That's right. You need to wear your mask. In the United States, we say, hey, please wear your mask. But not some other countries out there, you know what? They say, hey, you're going to wear that mask or else. They're going to beat you like a slave. All right, so today I want to talk about the Asian hate. Is that such a thing? Are crimes against the Asian community increasing? Well, there was a shooting that took place in Atlanta, Georgia, spot shooting, which the suspect was caught. And looks like this guy, Robert Aaron Long, he's facing a murder charge in the shooting of 8 people, 6 of them Asian women, and to 3 Atlanta area spas where this shooting took place on Tuesday. So 3 different spas this guy went to and just carried out this shooting. So that wasn't always, this guy was not always a bad person, apparently. But he went to high school in Canton, Georgia, and he went by his middle name. He graduated in 2017, kept a low profile. He played the drums, carried a Bible, and attended meetings of a Christian student club outside of school. He hunted deer, he played video games, and traveled with his church youth group. In an Instagram bio that social media company Instagram deleted, summed up, he said pizza. He liked pizza, guns, drums, music, family, and God. It's a pretty good life. Well, but over the past 4 years, Robert Aaron Long there, his life turned toward just really bad. He started college classes and left after 1 year. He believed he was straying from his faith, telling friends that he was fixated on sex to the extent that he thought he was addicted. His relationship with a girlfriend collapsed after she found out that he frequented massage businesses. And according to his roommate, his bond with his parents frayed. And on the night before the shootings, they threw him out of the house, according to the police. So, is this an isolated incident, or is Asian hate really a thing? What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, like, I can't speak on it. I mean, like, no. But what I can say is my own view on it is I don't see it. There's been one obviously quite bad instance of violence towards Asian people, but I don't necessarily see that there's that's indicative of like a wider trend that there's like widespread persecution of Asian people. But like I said, we have an Asian person here, and maybe you perhaps like to give your perspective on it.
All right, so let's bring it to the conversation. Elmer is Elmer Chen. He's our gunsmith at Central Texas Gun Works. So is Asian hate, is that a thing?
Just to preface everything, Mike called me this morning and said, "Hey,
I need my resident Asian.
would you like to speak on behalf of 4.5 billion people just because you're also Asian?"
4.5 billion.
Yeah, I mean, short answer is yes. I mean, there's racial hate, and the reason why I can say that is I was born and raised in Texas. I mean, I've lived 33 years of this. I've experienced it on many levels. In the past year, just because I'm in tune with it, there's been a lot of attacks. Like an hour ago, I just saw a picture on Reddit. There was an old man all bloodied. Apparently, a 40-year-old dude beat the crap. Is that legal?
You're good. You're
out
safe.
of him. And yeah, that literally just happened. So, it's starting. It has happened.
Do you
Um,
think this could be something that the media is kind of, drumming up? Because I always ask media outlets, how come they don't talk about suicides? And they say, well, we don't talk about suicides because then that'll create more suicides. Well, they started with this, this narrative, and I think all the media outlets took that narrative. Do you think they're kind of conjuring this up a little bit?
somewhat. I mean, here's a question for everybody in the room. Is anyone familiar with what happened last year in Midland in relation to Asian hate and all that stuff?
In Midland, Texas?
Yeah.
No.
I'm not either. No.
Nobody?
No, unfortunately.
A little
Okay,
closer.
so there was a family of 3 Asian Americans. They were at a Sam's Club, and all 3 of them were stabbed. And it was literally, he said, because of COVID, a China virus, all that stuff. There was a dad. He got stabbed in the face. The guy ran off, came back, stabbed his 3-year-old son in the back, slashed his 6-year-old's face from one side to the other, and he explicitly said it's because he didn't like Asian people because of the China virus. And so my question is like, nobody in this room knew about it. I mean, that's a kind of a big deal, right? If that happened, let's just say in Austin, to anyone who was an Asian or just in general, that seems like it's newsworthy, but like just wasn't really picked up, Um, did that stop drumming up hate for the Asian American community? I don't think so.
Okay. What do you think, Zach?
Well, I mean, on that point, you will hear all day long about the African Americans that are killed by police, but you will never hear about the white people that are killed by police. Like Tony Timpa. Are y'all familiar with Tony
blacks killing
Timpa?
blacks.
You know Tony Timpa?
Yeah, I know what that is.
You know who he is?
Yeah. He's the Latin American guy who was killed in a similar fashion to George Floyd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
White guy.
I didn't believe he was. I thought he was Latin American. I might be wrong, but I thought he was. He definitely wasn't black.
But yeah, there's definitely a media bias.
Yeah.
They
of
want to
course.
report, what they want to report. And
Well,
that's just how it goes.
Daniel Hoon Kim or whatever, the Korean actor who was on Lost, that's like what I think he was on Hawaii Five-0.
Uh-huh.
He was being interviewed about this subject. And I only know about this because I was having a discussion with my neighbor about it earlier this morning. And apparently, one of the points he brought up was he kept asking why polls, like voting polls, didn't include Asian Americans. And the response was they're statistically insignificant. So, I mean, polls, people trying to get votes, that's kind of a big deal, but they're statistically insignificant in relation to voting polls. So, again, just like the minimalization or what is it when you like detract from something? Like
That's pretty.
trivialize or whatever, something like there's just so much going on last year, right? We had COVID, we had Black Lives Matter, we had so many things going on. Maybe the Asian hate crimes weren't as serious or as often; they just got overlooked.
Okay, so
too.
could I put it to like a little differently? Could you perhaps give me your view on this rising Asian American hate pre and post COVID? Right. So could you perhaps
Yeah.
talk to me about instances of racism that or perhaps that you're aware of that happened to other people that
Sure.
happened
All right.
pre 2019?
When we
And
come
then
back from
post.
the break, I'll let him answer that question. Are crimes against the Asian community increasing? Well, you know what? The Texas Roadhouse founder committed suicide. So why is the media portraying his death as if he died of COVID-19? This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Coleon Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're talking about Asian hate, but you know what? Take a look at this video of the president walking up the stairs. And Vice President Kamala Harris is overlooking, just wondering when her time's going to come. Is it her time? No, not yet. All right, so we're talking about Asian hate today. Is that a thing? Is this a legitimate thing? And what do you say, Elmer?
Could you repeat your question just in short, real quick?
Yeah. All right, so are crimes against the Asian community increasing? Go ahead.
So the question I put to you is that could you just perhaps talk about your experiences with perhaps being the recipient of Asian hate,
Sure.
both pre and post COVID, and has it got considerably worse since post COVID, or has it been kind of always the same and it's only now just coming to the public consciousness?
So I've received Asian hate from just a little bit of prejudice, a comment here or there from people I really like and respect or whatever, up to literally I was on 6th Street once with a buddy of mine. He was also Asian American. Two guys, they ran up to me. This guy was right in my ear. He said, "Me and my buddies were looking to beat up some Asian guys tonight."
Okay.
Yeah, and that was pre-CHL. I wasn't 21. I always kept the metal pin on me. I pulled out my pen. I looked him up and down, And so stuff like that happened quite regularly. So, let's just say that's pre-COVID, right? I can't really speak too much post-COVID because I've been doing the whole stay-at-home thing. But anytime I have left, people just look at you ever so slightly differently, just a little bit of. I don't go to the gun shop much anymore, but the couple of times I have been, I walk through, everybody looks at me. I've worked there for years and years and years. It's just a different look,
I think that, because the reason we're wearing this mask is because of you.
What?
Kind of feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, again, if for some reason the Chinese government, was running a slave camp of scientists to create COVID-19, what does that have to do with the Chinese people? They're just as oppressed as everybody else, right?
if
Yeah,
not more.
What I believe, like in that instance, there's like you in that theory, you're saying that like what has the Chinese people done in return in terms of like if hypothetically if COVID was say man-made,
hmm
why is it like the rest of the Chinese people would be to blame?
Oh, exactly. Like if Kim Jong Il pressed a button and nuked somewhere, the oppressed, starving people of North Korea, would you attack one of those people? They have nothing to do with Kim Jong Il's actions. And then you remove that further as Asian American. I was born and raised in Texas. People say I'm the most country person they met. I just happen to be Asian as well, right? And so again, what does that have to do with us? I don't know anything about China. I've been there once and I was fish out of water. So again, what would that have to do with me personally other than the color of my skin?
Well, there's
Go ahead.
actually another factor that I think is more likely for why you feel like there's more hate against the Asian American community, and that's because Asian Americans are the most educated demographic in America. They have the highest income, so they're the most successful.
Sure.
And
We
so
can
that could be just jealousy.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the model minority situation. And I think a big contributing factor is we've all been stuck at home for a year. When we go out, we can't hug our friends, can't have a drink, unleash and all that. There's a lot of frustration. We're not at the end of it, and we won't be, even with these vaccines. If you want to vent and channel your frustration at a certain thing, and you really can't because this is worldwide, maybe it's China invented this virus, 5G, whatever. Oh, yellow person associate. Let me take out my anger at something, in relation to that. Finishing my thought from earlier, as far as Asian Americans, Chinese American, China virus, Asian Americans, there are dozens of countries in Asia. There are 4.5 billion people. There's only 7.5 billion people in the world. We comprise 4.5. I don't know anything about any other countries. I don't know that well. I'm Taiwanese. I look Chinese because, again, it's the same peoples, but we've been in a Cold War with China since the beginning, So I'm the complete opposite of a Chinese person. People don't understand that difference. I'm getting off topic here.
No, but you're just showing how ignorant some people are.
Oh, exactly. So I tell people I'm Taiwanese, and they go, "I love Thai food." And I'm like, that's great. Number one, that's Thailand. I don't know anything about Thailand. I'm from Taiwan. You don't know about this country, right? And number two, what does you liking, Kung Pao chicken have to do with me, right? If you tell me you're Irish, I go, oh, sweet, I love Spanish food. Isn't that just like really confusing, It's just a completely different thing. So yeah, there's a lot of misunderstanding. We are statistically insignificant, but we are like such a varied people in the world. Again, more than half the world is Asia. People just haven't been able to put their brains towards understanding, starting to learn, including myself. I don't know a lot about all the different Asian countries, all that good stuff. Asian people are some of the most racist people I've ever met against other Asian countries. They look down upon every other countries, like Chinese people and Japanese people. Like you can't have them in the same room. Especially the boomer generation or whatever. It won't work out well, because there's a history of Japanese people throwing Chinese baby in the air and catching them with a katana in World War II, right? So again, if you don't know all of that, Asian history, which there's so much of, and you're just basing your thoughts and actions on, oh, well, COVID started there. Kung flu, the leader of the country called it Kung flu, the Wuhan virus, China virus. Yeah, okay. I don't like Asian people. Like people hate things they don't know and don't understand. People hate guns because guns are scary in the movies, right? And so it's the same thing, right? People don't like people from the Middle East because they wear something on their head. I don't know. I mean, there's so much the Middle East. I don't know half of it. But so again, you hate what you don't understand. This happens to correlate with COVID because that was where it originated. Chinese people eat weird stuff, and yeah, there's someone to blame there. So, but at the end of the day, what does that have to do with me?
Yeah, and the people who don't like you because of the coronavirus coming from Asia. Those are people that are just kind of so stupid that how are you going to convince them
Yeah.
of anything,
It's
right?
the next thing. It's that progression. Oh, chemtrails, the Earth is flat, 5G, Illuminati, China virus. You know, they don't. They do your own research. Do your own research is basically looking at an meme image on Facebook. Like, is that your research? You know. So again, yeah, exactly what you said.
Now, Janice says the bigger issue in this is human trafficking. Is anyone asking why all these Asian women plus others are working in the sex industry?
Absolutely right. That's a huge problem. But what does that have to do with what we're talking about today, Asian hate? I would love for us to address human trafficking from Asian countries and others. But again, today is we're not talking about that. That's not the issue at hand. Um, yeah, if you want to have me come on and talk about that later, I would like to. I'd love to. I'm from Houston. That's the Asian sex trafficking capital of the world.
All right. And then Thomas says, hey, Zach, you never hear of the number of blacks murdered by other blacks, but let a cop kill a black, we never hear the end of it.
Well, the media doesn't talk about that, right? They do talk about the what is it, 19 blacks that are unarmed killed by police each year, though. So it's all about that media bias. The media has bias, and I mean they're flagrant about it.
There is bias, but there is also, you know, what's hot, what's an interesting topic right now. And then the way in which George Floyd died and was killed, you know, okay, let's bring, you know, these other similar cases, let's bring those to light. You know, I'm sure if something really tragic happened to a white person, not when Black Lives Matter was such a big deal, because you and I, we were talking earlier, there's a lot of videos of just white people getting killed completely unnecessarily that, again, just wasn't at the top of the news because of George Floyd. But I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
I don't know, but Al says, hey, Thomas, you never heard of the number of whites murdered by other whites and the number of Asians murdered by other Asians?
Right.
Well, the number of Hispanics murdered by other Hispanics.
Again, I think that's such a deflection. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about Asian hate, whether it's white people, Asian people. I just said Asian people are the most racist against other Asian people I've ever met by far, by a huge factor, because they actually understand some of these countries, and that's what makes them hate. And this other hate we're talking about is from not understanding.
I think it's interesting that you say like you never hear about XX or XY, right? It's like I think we're all acutely aware of the fact that black people kill black people in far higher numbers than whites kill blacks or white cops kill blacks, right? But it's just the fact that the media don't want to cover it. I don't think there's any debate. I think if you could go to the most liberal part of California and say, what do you think is more, white cops killing blacks or blacks killing blacks? And we'll all agree on it. Like it's the elephant in the room. But it's just that the media doesn't cover it. I don't think that's that's not like a conspiracy or a cover up. It's just the elephant in the room.
Yeah, there's only so much mental bandwidth us as a society have for these kinds of things. And it's so much, it's so overwhelming. We can only focus on kind of what's at hand at any given time. That's what I think about as far as like the media bias. Otherwise, you'd have to report on almost everything. Like if we can talk about Chicago on black crime, that would take a long time.
All right, we're talking about Asian hate. The Texas Roadhouse founder committed suicide. So why is the media portraying his death as if he died of COVID-19? This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Brittany Glaze, and I get my global gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police...
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
The city has been hit with sort of a trifecta of events that brought tourists to Florida. You have the Super Bowl, President's Day weekend, now spring break. The larger crowds we've learned have resulted in more than 900 arrests and the seizure of 80 firearms. We know of at least 50% of those arrested reside outside of Florida. So what is your message to people now perhaps eyeing a summer vacation in Florida?
Well, listen, we're always going to be one of the best destinations in the world, frankly, because we have so much to offer, and that's probably why people are coming. But right now, if you're coming here because you've been pent up and you want to let loose or you think anything goes, please don't come here. We have extra police everywhere. We're going to arrest people, and we have been. We're going to keep order because that's the first job of a city government is to keep order, and we've got to do that. So if you're coming here to go crazy, go somewhere else. We don't want you.
All right, so man, Florida, 900 arrests, like 300 were felonies. 80 firearms have been confiscated, and they had to call it just a state of an emergency because of spring breakers, because they don't want the spring breakers to be able to, to go on the beach. What do you guys think about that? It's spring break. People have been locked up for a whole year. What's wrong with them going out spring break? And let me remind everybody about the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. It spells out Americans' rights in relation to their government. It guarantees civil rights and liberties to the individual, like freedom of speech, press, and religion. It sets rules for due process of law and reserves all powers not delegated to the federal government, to the people, or the states. And it specifies that the enumeration, there we go, in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny and disparage others retained by the people. The First Amendment says, the First Amendment provides civil rights protections to express ideas through speech and the press, to assemble or gather with a group to protest or for other reasons, and to ask the government to fix problems. It also protects the right to religious beliefs and practices, and it prevents the government from creating or favoring a religion. What's wrong with spring break?
I think banning it is just the stupidest thing ever. I mean, banning it is just stupid. It's just a Streisand effect. Like, imagine you're a college guy, right? You're 21 years old, and some cop is telling you can't go out and party, and you're in a random town with like 10 of your best friends. It's going to make it even more exciting to go out. No one's going to abide by it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. What do you think, Elmer? I mean, spring break. You ever go down to South Padre Island or what is that other place down in Texas, the nasty beaches they have in South Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same feeling of, hey, we haven't done anything. I want to,
For
go
a whole
drink.
year.
Yeah, I want to go drink. I want to see some skin.
Yeah.
Both
Hot
sexes.
chicks.
Yeah. But does it make it right? Like, I want to thank and just make a note of appreciation everybody who's been wearing their masks, socially distancing, foregoing, seeing loved ones, friends, and all that for at least a year. All of those actions might have saved one life. Your actions might have saved one life. And for that, it would have all been worth it. And again, I just want to.
I mean, I would completely disagree with that. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. None of the reaction to the coronavirus has been justified, even if it saves one life.
Well, we can disagree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we could. I mean, like I said, I think there's only so long it becomes rational to keep people in their house. I think we're long past that. I think we're almost at exactly 2 years to the day where we had this, 2 weeks to slow the spread, quote unquote, and now we're 52 weeks in, and we're still really not know much better, to be honest with you. There's still a large corpus of people who still want the mask mandate to be reinstated. So I think that, no, the reaction's been completely stupid, and there's absolutely no relationship between reality and our reaction to coronavirus.
Absolutely. But my thought is that just the first mask mandate, everybody was already against it. People didn't follow it. That's probably why it failed. So our continued effort of half masking, half social, it's just going to be longer and longer and longer, So if we had all tried to abide by that initially and earlier, we might.
But with all due
ago,
respect, though, with all due respect, you're wearing a mask right now.
Yeah.
And if someone in this room had an asymptomatic case of COVID,
Mhm.
we're both relatively intelligent people. That mask is going to provide quite, questionable, like kind of safety precautions, right? So I do like what's the effectiveness of wearing a mask?
So I mean,
Or especially in this instance.
Sure, we can go in all of the different nuances, science, statistics. Like we just won't figure it out between you and I. I believe they're effective on some level, and if they're not, I did not go through great pains of just doing this. We're in a closed room. We've got 5 people. It's a small room. I mean, it wasn't hard.
But like, if say hypothetically, I put you in the next room there, and I said in that room next door, a man has Ebola, and I said you go in there with your mask. Again, as your own.
Number one, I wouldn't. Number
yeah,
two,
but so if you wouldn't, then why then are you perfectly willing to risk contracting COVID in a room here? Like, if you don't believe that this is an effective preventative measure.
Right. So 2 things there, right? I wouldn't go into that Ebola guy's room.
Okay,
but
why?
if I had to,
no, but why?
If I had to,
Mhm.
and the option is mask and no mask, I'd wear a mask.
Yeah, I know, but I think you misunderstood the kind of the.
Yeah, I was going to
background
answer
of
the
the
second
question
part.
is like-
It's the same thing as what you're talking about. We've all been doing, right? It's been a year of like, I haven't talked to anybody in a real conversation in a social setting in a long time. I wanted to do it too.
Yeah.
And this subject of Asian American hate is important enough for me to risk it.
Yeah. Well, no. Like I think, I just question that if you think masks are effective, then the follow the dot from that is then why would you not go into the room with the Ebola person? Do you know what I mean? This is me kind of use a thought experiment
it's
to
the same
explain
thing.
how stupid this policy is.
If seatbelts are effective, then why don't
No,
you drive crazy fast?
That's not what we're doing. That's not the question we had. The question is if this is a preventative measure to
Right.
prevent you from contracting this airborne disease, why is it that this mask protects you against one but not the other?
No, masks aren't 100% effective.
Okay, so we're making progress.
We have doctors treating people with COVID,
Mhm.
and they contract COVID and die.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are plenty of them that don't because they've been taking very serious steps. PPE.
I mean, you have to understand. I'm the person who I have a full face P100 mask, right?
Mhm.
Like it's this really will protect you from a virus,
Mhm.
and like nobody took COVID more seriously than me. But it does seem to be like quite an odd reaction. Like this like wearing a piece of fabric over your face is only going to offer somewhat limited protection, right?
And if it's limited, that's fine. It's better than nothing. Like a seatbelt won't save you in a 50-mile-an-hour crash from injury, but it helps.
But the equivalent question, so Elmer, if you knew that he had corona, would you come in here and do the show?
No, again, it's an additional layer of, safety.
So you wouldn't go in there if there was Ebola, and you wouldn't come in here if you knew that he had
No,
that
but
either.
there is a chance, so I'm going to wear a mask.
Yeah, but I think that's an interesting like way of rephrasing the question. But but you're wearing the mask because there's a risk that you might come into contact with someone
Mhm.
who might be an asymptomatic case and be like coughing and spreading the germs, right?
Mhm.
But as that previous question illustrates, that you yourself appreciate that this isn't going to be very effective if you're in a confined space with this person. So what difference does it make if it's...
Well, I disagree with you on the very effectiveness, but again,
I'm not a medical man, but again, you have a piece of fabric over your face. I don't think that's, again, I can't, do you know what I mean?
I'm going to go back to, it's a piece of rope across your lap, or it's an inflatable balloon in your face, the airbag, right? So again, we can disagree on that, which is fine, but I'm taking my precautions. I think what I'm doing
more power
will
to you,
help.
by the way. More power to you. This is
I think what
freedom.
I'm doing,
I think you should.
If I had a chance or an option, like, hey, would you like to go in a room, do the radio show today, everyone wear a mask or not? I prefer everybody in masks, but that's just not how the world works. So, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it's just on the side, I guess.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I'm just listening.
Thought you were gonna say something. All right, so I want to talk about the Texas Roadhouse founder, CEO, Kent Taylor. He died at 65 years old, and he was the founder of Texas Roadhouse. They were based out of Kentucky, I believe, but it was off the theme of Texas, because everything in Texas is big, right? So that's why I love Texas Roadhouse. I love the steaks that we get there.
Ribs.
Yeah, you like the ribs?
Oh my God.
I love the steak. I love that bone-in steak. Nice, big, thick steak. Well, he actually had tinnitus, and I have tinnitus, So he has tinnitus, and he contracted COVID-19, and somehow in conjunction with COVID and his tinnitus, I guess it got so bad, he actually committed suicide from it. And so the way the media is trying to portray this is as if they want to give people the thought or the insight or just kind of lead them toward the direction of, hey, he died of COVID-19 without actually saying that's what he did. They're just trying to give people lean people to that direction when he actually just he committed suicide. And so I don't know why the media does this. We do this with a lot of different stories. Once they pick up a story, they roll with it, and they push people to that particular narrative. Like I said earlier about suicides. The reason the media don't discuss suicides, we've had a lot of suicides happen in 2020. With COVID-19, social distancing, people having to stay at home. A lot of people have committed suicide, a lot of mental health issues. That's why now when you call 911 in Austin, Texas, they say, hey, do you need fire, EMS, police, or mental health services? So because I'm going to
give a call after this.
Yes, go call 911 and they'll tell you, hey, do you need police, EMS, I forget the other one, and mental health services. So, and we just don't talk about that. We don't talk about suicides enough. So,
Mike, how did you find out that he committed suicide and it wasn't just COVID?
I had to read into the story.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right?
You got to read into it.
Read the headline.
Not the headline.
Right.
You got to read into the body of the story.
So that's the problem, right? People who are, again, just reading headlines.
Right.
And your headline can't be as nuanced as, like, he has tinnitus and then COVID and it sucks and then he killed himself. And man died of COVID complications, right? Like, okay, if you read the article, you'll see exactly what happened.
Right.
So that's kind of the thing. Do your research.
Don't just read the headline, get into the meat of the
Yeah.
article and get down to the bottom of it. And all right, so we're talking about that. We're going to talk about more. We're going to talk about Miami. Going to talk about spring break. Going to talk about some other shootings. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, Zach is having a heart attack in here.
I just got some news. over
No,
the break.
don't repeat that news. Don't repeat that news. That is classified information. Sir,
Your secret is
you
safe
have-
with me,
You
Mike.
have signed an NDA.
Actually, I didn't.
Stand by.
So what he said was...
Moving on. Moving on. All right, so let's talk about guns. All right, so let's talk some guns. I want to talk about that Ruger Max 9. That's a brand new gun, right, Matt? We got Matt in here from Central Texas Gun Works. He's behind the counter.
Hey, yo, hey, yo.
A lot of people come into the store to talk to Matthew because Matthew is a wealth of information when it comes to guns.
I am known as a firearm nerd for a reason.
He's a local
So,
nerd.
here what we got for 2021. First up, the Ruger Max 9. MSRP of $499, meaning it's quite reasonable in price. But here's what you get. Tritium fiber optic front sight combo. Blacked out U-notch rear, which means you get really good sight picture. 12+1 capacity. You are now at the same capacity as a P365 XL. Oh, and by the way, it is optics cut for your red dots.
I bet you there's a lot less kick than that 365 because 365 has a lot of kick to it. And then to load the magazine of the 365, a lot of people cut their fingers when they're trying to load that magazine because that spring
you
is
still
so
need
hard.
you need a speed assist for those P365s. Probably need one for this one too, but you know it's not bad. Plus, you have 3 different options. You can have a 10-rounder for your state compliance, or if you want that little bit of extra concealability, you have your standard 12-rounder, and then you have what's called the Max Pro. That one has no manual safety for those of you who don't really care for the safety feature of a selector switch.
All right. Let's talk about the Shield. Shield, what is that? That's a Shield.
Oh, yeah, the Shield Plus. We actually
The
have 2
Shield
of those right
Plus.
now in shop. We had 3. One just walked out the door this afternoon. That is a 13-rounder upgraded version of the Shield 2.0. Now, here's the cool thing about that. 13 rounds, same exact slide width, same exact frame width where the trigger guard is. The only place they upgraded any of the width is at the base of the grip where that extra bit of magazine goes.
All right, so we're talking about the Smith & Wesson
Shield
Plus.
Which means all your accessories like your lasers, your lights that would fit the Shield and the Shield 2.0 will actually fit the Shield Plus.
Okay, now I'm looking at 2 different types. I'm looking at one that has some nice sights on it.
Oh, that would be the Performance Center.
Okay.
The Performance Center, you get some fiber optics, a little bit of a slide cut, or you can go for the Performance Center Extra. We didn't have pictures of that one, but that is a 4.0-inch barrel optic cut with red dot installed out the door. So that is more of a P365 XL competitor.
We're talking about some gun porn right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So also you have the SIG P365 X series. I want to know, what that is, and I want to know the differences between the 365.
So you used to have, so here's how it would work. They started off with the 365 standard. This was a 10-round magazine with a 12-round optional extended magazine system. What they then did was they went to the XL and they said, well, we'll take that extended magazine and drop in as the standard of measure, but we're going to grow that slide out to about 4 inches for barrel length. Well, a lot of people are like, well, I like the grip height of the XL, but I like the slide length of the standard 365. So what SIG has done is they've gone back to the 365's standard length, the XL's grip height, and dropped a red dot system on it. So it's almost as if it's a 43X competitor now.
I wonder if they even have a magazine for that. I mean, not a magazine, a holster for it.
They probably do. Or more than likely,
that's a really tall sight.
Well, yes, but you can probably use the same optics cut 365 XLs for that holster because it's the very same frame.
Okay. And then what's the cost of that?
That one, I believe, is right around the $700, $759 mark at this time.
Okay, that's the 365 X series. All right. So, and once again, tell me the difference between that and just a regular 365.
365 is just a standard 10-round magazine with the 12-round optional. The X series has that 12-round extended as the standard measure with the 15-round optional.
Okay. And then this 2020 Waypoint, what is that?
That was something I actually saw that the other day in our shop. It was like one of the first ones to come out. It's a full-on carbon fiber stock system. So what that means is the entire frame is carbon fiber. And the barrel is carbon fiber. So for those looking for a lightweight hunting rifle, this is now your platform to go to. You have so much modularity with multiple Magpul furniture option points, a full-on Picatinny rail, plus threaded barrels for suppressors or other muzzle devices.
Okay. And what's the cost of that?
That one, I don't remember exactly, but that is to be determined at this time. But we can order any one of these at CentralTexasGunworks.com.
All right, so once again, the Ruger, what's the cost of that Ruger?
$499.
$499 for the Ruger Max 9. And then the Shield Plus.
Shield Pluses are currently on our shelf for $759. There are 2 left, so get them while you can.
And then that 365 X series
is starting right around the $700 mark or so. Okay. And the waypoints are yet to be determined.
Oh, okay, cool. Man, some good stuff out there. So, people, go ahead.
Thomas Harrison is asking if you still have layaway.
Yes.
Yes, for online orders, it may be that we require a little bit more in shop for your layaways. Yeah. If it's in stock on our shelf.
All right, so in short, yes, we do. Now, you know what I want to talk about? Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. You ever want to go to Puerto Rico?
Sure, why not?
You ever want to go to Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I want the women.
You want the women? The women. Yeah. I want a woman.
I wouldn't mind traveling to Puerto Rico just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Have you thought that through? Can you handle the women of Puerto Rico?
I just saw some Bitcoin guy talking about it and Googled them, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty badass.
Okay. All right, so in Puerto Rico, the question is, can you bring a lawfully possessed pistol on vacation to Puerto Rico? What do you think?
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
It's a U.S.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you actually can.
You can actually travel. You have to go anywhere in the Caribbean. Well, anywhere with weapons.
I can't hear you.
I found out recently you can actually go anywhere with weapons in the U.S. You can temporarily export them. Each individual can leave the U.S. with up to 3 weapons.
Yeah, but we're not leaving the U.S.
Well, I mean, if you want to travel.
I can't hear you.
If you wanted to travel there on your own, you could go there. You could leave you could go there via boat or any other way.
But guess what? You have your Texas license to carry handguns. So with that Texas license, guess what? It's recognized in Puerto Rico. You didn't know that, did you?
Reciprocity is the right word for that, right?
There you go.
Reciprocity.
Aluminum.
Anamilium.
All right, so Puerto Rico has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the United States prior to 2015. So basically what happened in June of 2015, a local court ruled that Puerto Rico's restrictive gun laws were unconstitutional. And for a brief time, Puerto Rico had no enforceable gun laws. Well, that decision was soon overturned, and local and federal judges later found that Puerto Rico's gun laws were constitutional. However, in recent years, Puerto Rico have become increasingly dangerous, especially after the hurricane wreaked havoc on the territory's infrastructure. So in 2016, Puerto Rico had one of the lowest rates of gun ownership in the U.S., with only 225,000 firearms owned, a rate of just 6.6 guns per 100 people. At the same time, Puerto Rico had a murder rate of almost 4 times the national average and almost twice the murder rate in Louisiana, which had the highest murder rate of any state. So, more surprisingly, the new laws, basically what it says, hey, if you have a license to carry handgun from your state, guess what? It's recognized in Puerto Rico. So you can go to Puerto Rico with your LTC and carry there.
So practically speaking, then, how does that actually work? So do I'm assuming I don't just mosey on up to the check-in desk with my gun in the holster, right?
No, you have to have it in a box with the ammo in a separate box, right?
TSA approved case. The number of holes in that case have to equal the number of locks you install in that case. The gun must be unloaded and secured. Ammunition in the original factory box in a different case, or within the same case but separate from the gun.
Disclaimer, Matt is not an attorney, but he's really smart, and that sounds right to me.
Right. So Puerto Rico went from a may issue system to a shall issue system in line with most states, and the sole difference is a minimum age of 21 years old. The permitting system went from a bureaucratic nightmare costing upwards of $1,500 with no guarantee of obtaining a permit to a streamlined system costing $200 for a 5-year permit and $100 for a renewal with a guarantee that the qualified people would obtain a license. As of now, the government has 45 days to issue the permit, which will be reduced to 30 days after a year. And this was like 2019, so now it's down to the 30 days. And the permit gives the holder to carry a concealed firearm for self-defense purposes. Man, isn't that crazy? I had no idea, and I was in Puerto Rico like in 2018, 2019, so I had no idea.
How are the women?
You wouldn't know.
Zach, how are the women in Puerto Rico?
But it is important. Like every time I think about traveling, especially like Europe and stuff, it's like, well, how do I defend myself? Like, I don't think you're allowed to even carry knives.
Nope.
Like, you have to go back to having a pin, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, so Puerto Rico has a universal reciprocity with 50 states. I don't know, how do you say reciprocity?
That's right.
Reciprocity.
Oh, reciprocity.
Reciprocity. So Puerto Rico has reciprocity with all 50 states. Whether or not your state will accept Puerto Rico's permit, we don't know. So, but this means that vacationers, even those living in gun-restrictive states such as New York and New Jersey, may bring their lawfully owned firearm on vacation with them in Puerto Rico. As long as they have a valid concealed carry license or LTC from Texas, travelers should always be sure to check and comply with the latest airline and TSA regulations before bringing their firearm to the airport. Man, Puerto Rico. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hey, this is AWR Hawkins of Breitbart News, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so it's a beautiful day in downtown Austin, Texas, overlooking the skyline there. Man, I can see the Austonian. I can see, what's the Jenga building? What's the real name?
Independent.
The Independent, the Jenga building. I love that building. I love looking at it. I don't want to be in it, but I like looking at it. All right, so we're going to bring it to the conversation. James McCoy, he's with Urban Sharpshooters. He's out of the D.C., Maryland area. James McCoy, welcome to Come and Talk It, sir.
Hey, Mike and guest, how's everybody today?
Doing good. What you got going on this day?
Hey, Mike, down here in downtown Springdale, Maryland, I'm probably about 15 minutes from the D.C. line. In our city or area, because D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, they're all a stone throw away, we're noticing something strange. And it seems that a lot of people from the state of Texas who are gun owners are bringing their guns illegally into the nation's capital. And I wanted to know, what was your take on that?
Why are they bringing their? Honestly, I don't know, because you shouldn't know better. It's the nation's capital. We all know that guns are illegal there, so you can be. I want to say you can be convicted, charged and convicted of a felony for even doing that. So I don't know why a person would actually do that. I think that's pretty crazy.
There was a congressman who brought a firearm into the House floor after the insurrection, whatever you want to call it, and he didn't get into trouble.
I think legally, because they can actually do it in the building, and I don't know about the floor though, but I know they can actually carry into the building.
Why do some people have more rights than we do?
Yeah,
That's
this is
because you allow them to. That's right, because you allowed them to. Go ahead, James.
Google this though. I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday of last week, where you had a man. He may have been from Austin, Texas, and he was going to the vice president's house, which is located near the Naval Observatory, and he was found to have. I'm not going to say it was an AR-15 because we know the games the media play, but he had a rifle and several guns And I'm sure, being a responsible gun owner coming from the state of Texas, he knows better.
Right.
I'm just trying to get the logic behind some of the stuff that I'm seeing, because this isn't the first time, nor will it probably be the last time that a legal gun owner is breaking the law, bringing their firearms into the nation's capital.
Well, it could be a mental illness, because you're going to lose your gun rights forever if you do that, especially on a military installation. You're going to lose your gun rights forever.
What we see is that we know you have a certain group that has been elected to office, and they're looking for every reason to justify banning certain firearms or creating new gun laws where we really don't need them. But yet, it seems like we have people within the gun industry that's in the business of helping these people. That's what escapes logic to me.
Yeah, I think it's important to note there's 50 different states. Every county has different laws. All the states have different laws, obviously. All the counties, all the municipalities as well. And so it is difficult to know like Mike didn't know you could carry a gun into Puerto Rico, and he teaches LTC class for over a decade.
Didn't know.
So, I mean, that's just
But
another
we're talking
reason.
about the nation's capital, buddy, not to cut over you.
Oh, no, definitely. But, like a service like Texas U.S. Law Shield, that's what you do with them. You give them a call, hey, I'm going to D.C., can I bring my gun? Get shot down easy on that. And we were talking during the break, there was a woman who went to New York City. TSA let her through. She checked in her gun, all that good stuff. No one at the airport said anything to her, landed with her gun, pulled it out, put it in her purse because she had a license to carry. She was visiting like what's the big tall tower?
Willis Tower?
Empire State Building.
Empire State Building, and she saw a sign that said no guns, so she pulled it out and said, hey, where do I check in my gun? Because there's no guns here. And then she was, arrested, charged with felonies as well. There is definitely plenty of ignorance around the law for gun owners.
Yeah, and then what about Shanine? You remember that story, right?
Exactly. Shanine Allen, she's a good friend of mine.
Right.
But the root of the evil that I see, it goes back to people that's angry about an election. And some of these people just refuse to accept the outcome, and they're willing to not just jeopardize their gun rights, but the gun rights of millions of other responsible, legally armed citizens.
So right, because what you're saying is by them doing this, this could possibly affect the entire country. We all can pay for this because they're doing something stupid.
Exactly. It's just like I'm from Washington, D.C. When I was a little boy, you could go up to the Capitol, you could look through the window and see the alcohol that the congressmen and senators drank while they were on break or doing whatever they do. You could walk to the White House, climb up on the gate, yell at the president, whatever have you. Now when you go in Washington, D.C., you would think that you were in Mogadishu, Iraq, if there was ever such a place, because you have National Guards, you have checkpoints, you have people that are so afraid that if a car backfires, everybody wants to get down and take cover because they think some nut job is there to use his gun in an act of violence. And the gun community hasn't said anything.
Okay.
So this guy in D.C., he was on the Naval Observatory grounds. Secret Service came up to him. He didn't have any guns on him, and he said that he needed help and wondered if President Joe Biden could help him. And then the Secret Service member searched his car and found guns in there.
Going to Joe Biden for mental health?
Number one, Joe Biden doesn't live on the Naval Observatory grounds. The vice president does. My son knows Joe Biden lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Come on, man.
Well, this guy's from San Antonio, so I don't think he has the same D.C. knowledge that you may.
So what are you saying? He doesn't take history? Everybody knows the president lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
You're trying to
man.
You're trying to get the benefit of the doubt that that you're dealing with an intelligent person. You're not thinking that maybe
he's
this guy's
a gun owner, Mike. Come on, man. He's a responsible gun owner from the good, God-loving, gun-friendly state of Texas.
He still could be ignorant.
With all due respect, I know the White House is where the president lives, but I had no clue I don't know my streets in Washington, D.C., so that was complete geography gibberish to me.
Matthew, how do you not know that?
Because my geography of most states, other than Texas, currently is kind of foggy. Besides, I lived in Maryland. I never lived in D.C., so I didn't really need to know the street names in Washington, D.C.
All we know is
Man, how
it's
many TV
511 and
programs have
OU
they
still
made with the
sucks.
president's address? Come on, man. I understand we want to take up for our brothers in arms, but it comes a point where responsible gun owners have to say enough is enough.
Yeah, but people don't, get exposed to the White House and that kind of information on TV shows like Maury, Povich, stuff like that. So again, there's that assumption that people are actively taking personal responsibility for all of their actions, their thoughts, and all that. And that's just not true. We've seen it time and time again over the past 4 years and over millennia since the invention of humans.
Okay, so with that in mind, then, why do we have a Second Amendment? Like, we either have it or we don't. And like, I think that the caller's question should be kind of put back to the caller, and we should say to him, why should someone not have the right to carry an AR-15 wherever they damn well please? If you're a law-abiding citizen, you're a law-abiding citizen. Why is it that we're confining this idea of Second Amendment? Why are we putting asterisks there? You're either for Second Amendment
Because
or
there
not.
are laws that say you can't. You have to obey the law. There's a law that says in order to buy a gun, you must first have a
but
background
you
check,
you
right?
understand, like what you're saying here is quite odd. Is that like if someone isn't breaking the law and they're just simply in possession of a weapon in a certain area, like why like you again, you're either for the Second Amendment, in which case you're allowed to own a weapon, and wherever wherever in any public property you're allowed to carry a weapon, whether it's your house, you're out on the street. Now, what you're doing is you're adding asterisks to the Second Amendment. Now, you either support the Second Amendment or you don't.
Every gun
but
owner,
you can't have it both
every gun
ways.
owner who goes through training learns the words responsible gun ownership.
No,
And
but
we
you, okay, so
also
how
learn
about you explain to me what responsible gun ownership is? Because there seems to be have different opinions on that matter.
I think the key is you just said training has training, and that's just not true of every gun owner. You can go to Academy, buy a gun, and go home and be an idiot all day you want. What's that?
True, but he's not being a responsible gun owner because he's not obeying the gun law, number one. And number two, as you said, with training, he hasn't taken the time to get the training necessary to make sure that he remains a law-abiding gun owner.
Exactly. Shame
Guns,
on
again,
him.
if you ever in the military, it's this word called regulations. Regulations is something that some people don't care for, but yet they follow them because regulations are put in place for a reason. We may not agree with them, and we have the right to elect people in office that will make laws.
No, like you're not. You're arguing two different positions at the same time, and you're not making any sense. Not to me and not to the listeners. You're saying on one hand that you appear to support the Second Amendment and that people should have the right to bear arms, and I agree with that, and I think everyone in the room agrees with that statement, right? But it appears like you're adding asterisks to that, and that there should be caveats to firearm ownership with training or whatever. I don't agree with any of this. Anyone should have the right to possess a weapon.
What country are you from? Hold on, let's stop first. Where are you from?
You say what country?
I hear a touch of an English accent, my friend.
No.
From?
It doesn't matter. I got a Texas driver's license.
Yes,
I got
it
a Texas
does.
driver's license, and I've got a Texas license to carry. That's all you need to know.
Because here we go again. You're coming into a country where you have a foundation that doesn't appreciate the Second Amendment.
Yeah, so because you're an immigrant that you...
Yeah, no, wait, one second. I'm an immigrant. I moved to this country, and I moved away from my family and the culture and my friends because
But you're a U.S. citizen.
No, I came to this country so I could own a firearm. So my accent and my national heritage has absolutely no bearing on this discussion.
You integrated into a culture that you may not completely understand.
I don't think I have integrated into it very well. I think I haven't integrated very well at all. It appears that everybody in America who seems to support the Second Amendment doesn't support it whatsoever. You all half support the Second Amendment. No one is full open ownership to firearms, and even you yourself now, you're calling into a firearm show and you're advocating. You're advocating for restrictions to firearms.
For ownership of firearms, but we believe that it should be.
Yeah, precisely. You said but, and you're using this word reasonable. You said the word but, sir. You're using linguistic sleight of hand, and you're arguing two positions at once. Do you want full unrestricted firearms? Do you want? Answer my question, sir. Do you want full unrestricted firearms ownership, or do you want restricted firearms ownership? It's a very simple question. Do you support the Second Amendment or you do not?
Who said Second Amendment didn't have restrictions, number one?
Shall not be infringed, sir.
Shall not be infringed, and it does not grant anything to the people. It restricts the government from putting any kind of limitations on ownership or operation.
Well, hold that thought. We come back. Hold on. Hold on. We come back from the break. We'll answer those questions. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jack Jones here, and I get my gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean, or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you, without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings, because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs, but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you, because you're not being interrogated, you're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights, and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're having a gun debate between the pro-Second Amendment community. And you were saying what when we went to the break?
So, yeah, no, I was just discussing with the listener that I wanted the listener to perhaps clarify his position on the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment is very clear, and I don't think there's much of... it's very clear, and it says, shall not be infringed. Yet it appears that our caller is very eager for infringements on the Second Amendment. So perhaps he could just clarify his position.
May I speak?
Yes, sir. Go for it.
All right. Let me first let you know that it really doesn't matter because we're all American here, but I happen to be African American of African descent.
Yeah, you and me, brother.
And when the Second Amendment was created in 1791, sir, it was not applied equally to my race. So you can say shall not be infringed all you want, but there was a whole race of people. Many had fought in the Revolutionary War against your people, which is the reason why you have a Second Amendment, because your people came to this country to take guns away from the so-called Americans because they didn't want the Americans to gain the freedom that we all share today.
Okay, well, first things first is that just to make sure you're aware, despite my accent, I'm actually African American myself. So I'm Jamaican.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Understand the country. The country that you come from.
Yeah, no,
and
no.
if you were around, hold on, this is what I'm saying, Mr. Shall Not Be Infringed. Hold on.
Yeah, carry on.
Because you want to say that 1791, when this draft or this law was written, that it was applicable or applied to everybody, is absolute nonsense.
No. Okay, so I think there's a difference in what you're saying. There is that again, whether the government applied the Second Amendment equally to everybody, or whether it actually does the Second Amendment does apply to everybody. It's two different things. Okay. Now, I didn't have very much faith in the government, regardless, to protect my rights. That's
Brother,
why. No. Excuse me, sir. No, you will be silent while you will be silent while I respond to you. Okay.
You will be silent.
There has to be a back and forth. You can't speak over me. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I let you speak, and now you will let me speak. Okay. Now, like I said, is that what you're stating here is that the government may not have given black people full Second Amendment rights, and that's obviously wrong, and I wouldn't support that. But the fact of the matter is that my Second Amendment right transcends the government. Okay, my right to defend myself is not secured by the U.S. government. It's not secured by some paperwork that's up in Washington. Okay, my Second Amendment right is the fact that I have a right to defend myself wherever, as long as I'm in somewhere I'm lawfully allowed to be. Right. So you saying that the government didn't apply it equally to start with, therefore it's never going to be equal, it's never going to be applied equally or fairly in the future, seems somewhat defeatist and almost kind of proves the fact that your argument is wrong. Like, again, you either want to, you as a, you either fully support the Second Amendment or you don't. And I'm very much far away. Yeah.
Are you a gun owner?
I am. I'm carrying one right now.
Okay. Did you go through the process of a background check?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And since you're saying shall not be infringed,
yes,
is a background check not an infringement?
Yes, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. Yeah. Background checks are absolutely morally wrong.
Okay.
I mean, the difference is like ideology on principle, right? And actual practicality and how it's being, implemented. Those are never going to be the same. I want full freedom in America. That doesn't give me the right to run around naked and, touch people, whatever, right?
No. But you've used some sleight of hand there, because there's a very big difference about you being free to walk around naked, which I fully support your right to do, FYI, and you touching someone up. There's a difference there.
Correct.
Because, but so you can't just mishmash them together in your argument like you just did there. They're two very different things.
So let's remove the touching,
And with regard to...
I like the touching.
Remove the touching! I would like to take back the touching, please, officer!
It's been 2 years since I've been touched.
I was just getting into this conversation.
This is very good. Hey, check this out. I don't know your name, my English brother. But
yeah,
he's my son, Anthony. His son is my Anthony. He's my son, Anthony.
If American rights, let's go back to the history of the Second Amendment, right?
Yeah.
You had this thing called the British Bill of Rights, right?
Uh-huh.
This is where it gets its foundation from.
Yeah.
So if we're going to look at it in its entirety, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it says a well-regulated militia being necessary to maintain a free state.
Yes.
That part quite often in the gun community is left out, right?
No, I don't think so. It's relevant.
Right. The only thing that you mentioned is shall not be infringed, right?
No, again, I think you're mixing two arguments here. The militia part of the Second Amendment is what's called a qualifying clause, I believe, in legal terms, and it is basically to say that with understanding the fact that a militia is needed to secure a free state, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. If you look at any of the contemporary writings of the time, anything over around the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence or under the signing of our Constitution, there was absolutely no one. There was no prominent thinker or political writer who was advocating that the freedom that firearms should only be restricted to militias. It was always understood that.
But my point is, we got to understand the origin of the law, where it came from.
Yeah, no, precisely. We just explained that. We just explained that, and we've just
no. And then after we understand the origin of the law, we have to understand the need for it. Why did Americans feel that they had to have a Second Amendment?
Okay, we need the Second Amendment because we need the right to defend ourselves. And if you take away
who and what?
What, sorry? From
who and what?
So there's two reasons why. There's two reasons why we want to defend ourselves. There's what I call the immediate tyranny, which is, say, if I'm walking down the street and I get mugged by someone or gang or whatever, which is like just interpersonal. And then there's what I call the more larger tyranny, which is the fact that my government may want to oppress me. It's for those two reasons that we have Second Amendment rights.
Wrong. Here we go again. When the founding fathers
elaborate, explain to the listeners and everyone else here why I'm wrong.
when the founding fathers saw a need to make the Second Amendment in the year 1791, you also had a rebellion that was going on in this land that we know as Haiti, right? They understood that they didn't have a standing army to defend the newly acquired territory that they just stole from the British, because in the country you come from, they look at the founding fathers as terrorists.
Yeah, no,
right?
I understand exactly where you're coming from. I mean, again, I understand where you're coming from, but again, I don't understand how that applies to our idea of rights. Is that a right is a right?
So if we know that the British came to take away guns because they didn't want the Americans to have a rebellion, of course, in their laws, they had to put in those laws that guns could not be taken away.
No, that's not correct. So but again, this circling back to the original part of your call is that no. You've had your time, and now I'm going to talk. Okay, that this original part of the call was you saying you wanted to restrict, or you believe that some people shouldn't be able to travel to certain places with rifles. Okay, now you seem to be advocating all these restrictions to the Second Amendment and saying that we've always had these restrictions and that there's always will be restrictions. And I think that I'm coming from this position by saying, no, there's a fundamental right and the government is infringing on my right to possess a firearm. Now, whether you think there has been restrictions in the past or whether you think there should be in the future, that's not really a debate here. The fact of the matter is that I have a right which far transcends the Constitution or our government. This isn't a matter of...
So here we go again. In English law, do you realize they had a gunpowder law?
You have to wait. Excuse me. You have to understand. Just to clarify my position here, I don't actually.
What I'm trying to get you to see is a roadmap, because I'm sure since you're from that country, you understand. When we look at the term militia, right? If you look at what qualified one to be a militia, they had to be from a certain age, right?
No, we've already dealt with this militia argument, okay? And I'm not going to go rehash it again, okay? The Second Amendment was not originally designed.
I've never talked to you before about this argument, and I'm sure there are people out there that will go back and research what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. If they will, and they'll understand that you're very, very much wrong, okay? And if our listeners are more than willing, I say go out and you can find me any text which limits any contemporary writer of the time in where the Constitution was signed, which says that firearms ownership should only be restricted to militias.
I never said firearms ownership.
Okay, so why you bring up the militia argument? Because it's not relevant.
Because it's part of the Second Amendment, sir. It's in writing.
Doesn't it say James, James, yeah. we got like 15 seconds. Can you go ahead and give me something in closing in 15 seconds?
Hey, but look, the gun community in this country, powerful. Rich people, poor people, we all love our guns. We have a handful of nuts, because they're still mad about them in an election, that are doing dumb things with firearms that's going to cost the rights of millions of people who are doing the right thing.
All right. And then what you got to say in 10 seconds? Go.
So what I would say is that the Second Amendment is very clear. It says shall not be infringed, and I don't believe you are actually a gun supporter. If you support guns, you support full access to firearms. That means no background checks. That means fully automatic weapons. That means any caliber. You either support the Second Amendment or you don't.
So if you could, please park USS Missouri in my backyard along with USS Texas and one Peacekeeper ICBM. Thank you,
America.
As always, more guns equals less crime. You go out there and you buy yourself a gun. You listen, Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.